The following scene opened up with the transition wipe I saw earlier, and displayed Mario held captive by what I thought to be a giant statue of Fawful. Its arms were exposed outward, unlike the normal statues found in-game. Only Mario's head was sticking out from the grip of the hulking stone effigy. Its fists appear to be tightly squeezing the plumber, restricting him from movement. The room appeared to be Bowser's overtaken throne room from early on in the story. Mario was unconscious. I wasn't even sure if he was alive. Nothing else went on from there. The game appeared to be frozen once again, but my past experience with this game in the last 24 hours struck me with a grueling skepticism. I knew for damn sure this wasn't anything planned, hacked, or glitched in any possible way. The game, for as scary as it sounds, was testing me. Feeling unnaturally adamant about this whole freaky phenomena, I had no choice but to play this game's game. I sat as still as a building on my bed, glaring at the screen. I knew that taking my eyes off it for even a moment meant another missed answer, or even something worse. I sat there for many hours, just waiting for the scenario to change, but it never, ever did. Was I really having a staring contest with the game, or am I just crazy? I'm not crazy! Please believe me. As much as I wanted to look up and see the time, I forced myself not to. I clenched the rim of my gifted Mario hat, the same as a frightened child would his mother's loving hand. It was the only thing keeping my spirits up. I went well into the post-evening hours without moving an inch, hardly thinking of anything else. I stopped to blink once every minute or so, which was utter hell on my eyes, but I really didn't care at this point. Eventually, I had no choice. My human body and its functions shut itself down to conserve energy. I naturally passed out from fatigue. After what seemed like only minutes, I awoke in a huge sputter. I quickly flickered my head in many directions, trying to get a clear view of my surroundings. Fearing that I royally slipped up, I looked down at my DSi, still open and firm in my hands. It was turned off. I gasped, pulling it closer to my face. Did the battery die? I tried turning it back on, but that didn't work. It must have ran out of battery after all. I bolted out of my bed, still adjusting to my meek, underused legs, and hastily went to connect the system to its charger. I plugged it into the wall socket first, but when I tried connecting it to the system, it surged back at me, painfully shocking my hand. I dropped the system in response to the jolt of pain, clenching my injured hand with the other one. I glanced down at the DSi with a face I don't think I've ever given, not even to my spiteful relatives. I had another should I do it moment. I thought twice about touching the damn thing, but I gave in to my curiosity. I reluctantly picked it back up and attempted to recharge it once more. Thankfully there was no shock, but it still didn't work. I sighed with a breath of frustration, thinking that I missed something important. The time was 2:30. My weekend was coming to a close. I shut my DSi and set it down. Feeling like I could drop dead from exhaustion at any second, I weakly slumped over to my bed and collapsed into it. I decided to give up on this whole thing and actually get some healthy sleep. I took one of my pillows and lightly pushed it against my face, feeling its soft padding. I closed my eyes and tried to fall asleep. It didn't last long. Through even the fluffy innards of my pillow, I could hear a loud, piercing noise. It sounded very close, frighteningly close. I was too scared to see what was causing it, so I instead tried making a picture of what I heard. It sounded like something was scratching on my bedroom window, which was only inches away from my own bed. It was a mix of shrill, ear-shattering scrapes against cold glass and the organic, chilling, slicing noise one could only feel by carving through another's living flesh. It was one of the most terrifying things I've ever heard in my life. Whatever was making the sound must have done it with intention. No way in hell was a sound like that accidental. My first thought was that it was a cat, or perhaps a starving bear, but even I know that couldn't be. Putting trust in my own senses for a brief second, I had to be honest, it did not sound from any sort of reality. The grating continued for 5 minutes until it mysteriously stopped on its own. I got up and squeamishly approached the window. The scraping sounded severe, yet there wasn't a single scratch on my window. I knew that I had to see what was out there, no matter how much I wanted it to go away. I picked up the burliest blunt object nearest to me, which was a steel baseball bat, and went straight for the front door. Taking a cursory glance at what was behind me, I turned the knob slowly and opened it as silently as I could. I took a careful look out of the door's small opening, but nothing was there. The glow of our porch light brought every inch of our field into clear view. There was no wind, almost no sound at all. The only thing I could hear were the sounds of my very quiet footsteps coming off of the porch. My restless nature resulted in me constantly looking around. Even if no sound was to be heard, I stopped for a moment to examine the tall grass, relieved to see that the field was completely empty. I creeped with caution through it, although the rustling sound made me really nervous. Rounding the corner with my bat straight out, I was surprised to see nothing at all. But it couldn't be that simple. Was I just imagining things? Getting closer to my actual window, my next step through the tall grass exposed something under my windowsill. The light inside my room gave enough of it off for me to get a proper visual. It looked like the same Mario hat that I was wearing, only gray. I bolted my eyes open, piecing a detail together. The hat was green. Not wanting to actually touch it, I eased my bat against it, trying to knock it off the wall. The gray hat fell to the ground, showing the front view of it. There was no logo, just a blank space above the rim, but I already knew what this was. Officially feeling spooked. The view of this second cat brought a myriad of questions to my mind, mainly things like, what the hell is going on? And why is this happening? The prolonged stare I gave to the hat led my eyes to the bottom of it, where I can see a bit of paper sticking out from under it. I used my free hand to turn the cap over and see exactly what that paper was. It was a note, written in what I believed to be black ink, as thick as fresh blood. It spelled out, "A one, are you?" That was the exact same thing the masked toad asked me. I shot my stance back and took several quick steps behind me. Whatever was trying to scare me finally succeeded. How in the hell could text from my game be referred to anywhere out here? I'm the only one that knows about it, aren't I? It was hard to depend upon even my own inner thoughts, yet they were telling me something. I'm not the only one out here. Looking back at the lurid note, I noticed one of the corners was folded in. I turned it over with my trembling hand and saw another message inscribed with the same black writing. What a nice gift. Gift? Did it mean my hat? Whoever wrote this seemed to know quite a lot about me. I went to touch it and felt something underneath, something that clearly wasn't there before. I tipped it up and reached for what was concealed. It was a pistol. I was freaked out, wondering how a sidearm got in there in the first place. But I had the feeling I needed more to defend myself with soon. I stared eyes agape at the note, wondering if whatever figure wrote it could actually see me. I held the pistol firm in my hand, seeing that the safety was already turned off. What did this mean? Right from the midst of my silence, a loud metal thud bursted from where my back was turned. I dropped the bat and clenched the curious pistol with both hands, pointing it squarely at where I heard the racket. I stood my guard, gun outward like a turret, for a minute or two. No other sound followed. It came from my front yard. I swallowed so hard it hurt me. All I wanted to do was wait here until my parents returned, no matter how long I had to wait. But whoever's tormenting me wants just that. Me, and they were gonna get it the hard way. I kept my entire self close to the gun, knowing it was my greatest, not to mention only, means of defense. Rounding the corner gave me no new answer, only my barren front yard. Except, hang on, something was different about our mailbox. The crimson metal flag on the side was flipped, normally signifying a mail clerk delivering something. Not straight up, but slanted in the direction of the house. I was getting more and more afraid for every minute that passed. Who is sending me mail at 3 in the morning? The post doesn't even run on Sundays. Feeling uneasy about where I was currently standing, I rushed over to the mailbox, stopping to see what was around me for a moment. I couldn't help but feel as if I was being watched. I kept the pistol right at my side, just in case something popped out at me. I used my other hand to tilt the flag back to normal, and then opened the mailbox. Reaching inside caused me to feel another note. I held my hand in there and closed my eyes, just hoping it would be nothing. I pulled it out and read what it had to say. "A you need is you." I've nearly reached my breaking point. These messages, they don't directly threaten me, but instead seemed more like miniature riddles. All I could think to do at that moment was scream, and I had no reason not to. I angrily shouted at the top of my miserable voice, "I read your notes! I played your game! I deserve an answer!" I dropped myself to the ground and clenched my fists harder than ever. "Who are you?" Hearing my voice echo, I knew my yell was loud enough, but still nothing. I looked at the note's message again, which didn't help me one bit, until I turned the paper around. And Fawful. I instantly threw the paper back and gasped, shocked at what I just read. Fawful? It was Fawful? No! No way in hell! He's not real! At what was probably my third decision at calling something final, I passed it off as nothing more than a sick prank. Still down at my knees, I noticed something else in the mailbox. I groaned, expecting another fake note. What I found was my mother's wedding ring. The gemstone was cracked, with a chunk of it missing, and several warm drips of blood around the rim. I froze solid, feeling like my heart had been ripped out. Mom, Dad, no! A flood of tears leaked from my eyes. The closest part of me had been destroyed. I was all alone now. I bawled like an orphaned baby at the sight of the mangled ring, knowing that my loving parents suffered the same. Then another sound played. The first bit of sound made me jump and fire my gun in a completely indifferent direction. Then, it played again, louder than before, but still faint. I was so devastated. I was about ready to kill whatever I saw next. This noise seemed familiar, and in a very bad way. I shot once again out into the open, hitting nothing at all. I waited for a moment to let it play again. I could now tell what I was hearing. That was the sound used for Fawful's speech in-game. It was coming from my room. Out of feeling so goddamn crushed at my loss, I bolted into the house with the thought of cold murder overwhelming my mind. Whoever was really doing this was soon to be a dead son of a bitch. I ran into my room fully armed. There was still nothing. I refused to accept such a thing. I'm not crazy! I looked around my room. My DSI was nowhere to be seen. I violently flipped over my entire bed like a madman, pointing the gun straight at the carpet underneath. It wasn't there either. I heard the voice again, but it was a quiet giggle. Not the same thing I heard from outside. It was coming from my right pocket. Overflung with uncertain rage, I took a clear shot at the confines of my pocket, which only resulted in a bullet piercing through my thigh. I howled in agony, feeling nothing but. I was gritting my teeth from the unbearable feeling I just gave myself. My blood was a horrid black, the same substance the creepy notes had been written in. Miraculously, the bullet seemed to have passed completely through everything but the system. I could see the light blue color from out of the bullet tear. It was completely unscathed. So, I did it once more. Good! Again, only my skin was pierced. The shot completely phased through the DSI. Not wanting to do that a third time, I pulled it out of my pocket, my bullet wound searing with pain. I stopped to look at it, alarmed by one detail. The power was on. Both lights were glowing black, which is a color no functional gaming system could possibly have. Horrified of what could be inside, I opened it up and looked at the screen. All I could see was a blank gray background, as if the thing was actually turned off. Then something came into the picture from the left. It was Fawful. He was slowly walking into the scene, sporting much more detail than any of his original sprites displayed. He was taller, had a longer cloak, and his legs had color to them with a realistic animation cycle. In fact, he was fully colored, even his green face. There were no gray specks to be seen on any part of his outline, something that characterizes an official Mario and Luigi sprite. He walked into the center of the screen and stopped to face me. He was blinking and smiling, very unlike his permanent grin. It was a calm, purposely formed smirk with no teeth exposed. It appeared as though he was taking a good, long look at my face. It finally amounted to him talking directly to me with his own voice. Piteous pity. Fawful sees that you're lonely. Is that being so? Feeling too frightened to move, speak, or even close the system, I simply nodded in response to his words. They oddly seemed to be calming me down. That is what happens when you have this specialness. Fawful has it too. Listening to him speak and move around like that made me feel better. The sound of his voice made my body forget all about any pain I was having. I even ended up smiling back at the screen. He continued speaking to me, and I was enthralled with the conversation. You make Fawful happy. He stepped closer to me and frowned for a moment. Does Fawful make you happy? I had to be honest with him. Yes. I could feel nothing but overpowering felicity as he spoke to me in that English tone. I nodded happily, as if responding to a friendly remark. I had a friend with me all along. I tightly hugged my system, hoping that would please him. It turned itself off within a dead moment. I was upset that he had left me so soon, but somehow I knew what I had to do. I set the DSI back in my pocket, and with a big smile, I shot a hole clear through my left hand. It felt good, like I had been blessed with the mutual insignia. I purposefully allowed my dusky blood to leak from my new marking. It completely coated my hand, making it look much prettier. I threw the useless pistol down onto the floor and grabbed for my friend's barrel-hued prison with my enchanted palm. Clenching it firm in my bleeding grip, I stood my spine upright and closed my eyes tightly, more ready than ever. Alone, are you? That is such badness. All you need is you and Fawful. The chant caused my DSI to rupture itself, forming a multitude of cracks to cover it. The black cracks molded into threads that violently shot itself into my skin. It tickled. I could feel a new, profound meaning to my life course through my veins, spreading itself to every part of me. As my spine twitched from it, I happily strolled over to our big mirror. I could see the changes taking effect. Our eyes turned deep red, with the fluid remains of our insignia molded itself around the hand, taking the shape and color of my other half's fashionable glove. It felt amazing. I smiled widely at our merged self, wondering how my master was.
Are you feeling well, friend? He snickered quietly, quite happy to hear my voice. Yes, we are being perfect. Hell yes we are. I felt reborn, although we were wearing a flaw, that insipid hat of stupidness my imperfect self put on. My other half told me not to worry, and that he had a solution. Snickering, our right hand shaped into the beautiful form of Master's lovely umbrous claw. We clenched the red smudge and ripped it to shreds. I couldn't help but cackle at it. We are having quite the power. He laughed yet again, thinking so too. The mightiest of all. Our massive claw gripped the nape of the neck and twisted. It did nothing, even taking the pistol and shooting ourselves in the head only left it tingle. We laughed wickedly, stroking our chin with the lovely claw. Think the others would like our little story, Master? Of course.